Hello everyone and welcome back to the Cyclocross Social podcast. We've reached the end of our Christmas Blitz. We are covering the penultimate race of the Christmas period, which was also the penultimate race of the Superprestige, and with me to do that is Issam.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Racing in the Texas of Flanders today. The region owns that nickname because it is a very wealthy region in Flanders, in West Flanders specifically. There are a lot of entrepreneurs there. There are also a lot of people there that like to go to cyclocross, like to hang out together, like to go to sports. So that's why they have the nickname the Texas of Flanders, although it's of course not nearly remotely as big as Texas or even relatively to the rest of the country. The men's race started with Wout van Aert coming right to the front of the race. The Visma Lease bike rider needed to start a bit further down because he's dropped down the UCI ranks, but he was eager to show himself in just his second race of the season. He was up front for the first 20 minutes but let Zweek set the tempo. After 20 minutes, Zweek thought he had enough, he felt he didn't have the legs, he gave up, he threw the towel and finished 14th. Van Aert hit the front and only Michael van Toerenhout was able to follow him. A bit later though, Van Aert dropped the pace, which allowed Joran Wieseur and Eli Iserbyt to come back. That didn't last for long because Van Aert launched another attack, and at that moment Iserbyt was the only one able to follow. We went into the final 2 laps of the race with the 3-time world champion leading with the Belgian champion in his wheel. Van Aert had the upper hand on the power sections, but he struggled through the technical sections. He opened a 4-second gap going into the final lap, but lost all of that in the first 2 corners because he was very rusty. Iserbyt took the lead twice in the final lap, putting Van Aert under pressure in the technical sections, but ultimately Van Aert took the upper hand in the more powery sections of the course in the second half. Iserbyt then also started to make a couple of mistakes, which led Van Aert to his first victory of the season ahead of Iserbyt, with Van Toerenhout clinching third. After the race, Van Aert said he was quite surprised to take the victory, and while that may sound a bit surprising, Issam, if I see him race like this, it makes quite a lot of sense, right? It's almost as if Mr. Bean had gotten onto that bike. His technical ability is nowhere near what we know he can be. The fact that he's not done any or hardly any cyclocross specific trainings was really showing today, because what was that? Those technical abilities, they were nowhere to be found. If it's the dab in the final lap in a super easy rut, if it's the way that he nearly went through the sandpit diagonally, forgetting that there was no rut there, it was just visible all over the place today that while he has the watts, the cyclocross specific ability wasn't there, and it was just about enough to squeeze out the victory here.
You could clearly see that Van Aert was just really struggling, and with Gullegem you get a course that is just, when you're not really having the feeling, it shows. And today was the case. I think that he was more on the ropes than he should have been. He was struggling more than he should have been. I think that if his technique was just a little better, I think he would have won today with a minute. And it was visible as well. You could see on the straights and also in the running, to be honest, which went quite well for him, that he was just, a level above the rest, which is normal, which is what we somewhat expect from him. But it was technically it was really bad, and it was funny actually to see that there was not really much talk going about his technical abilities today, at least. The last lap shouldn't even have been a last lap battle, in my opinion. But Iserbyt basically gets the opportunity to overtake Van Aert again and put him a little bit under pressure and make his life a little more difficult. But in the end, we could just see that Van Aert was just better. It's nice for him that he was able to take the win in front of his home crowd in a way. I think everywhere Van Aert goes in Belgium, it's home crowd in a way, and in that regard, it's a good feeling for him to fulfill somewhat his achievement in a way of winning a race. If he has ambitions within the sport of cyclocross and he wants to bring up the challenge to Van der Poel and maybe try to go for another world title, I think that a race like today was very evident that there is a lot of work that Van Aert needs to do to achieve that level again, mainly technically, I think. I think other than that, you can say that it was great to see that he was able to win. Iserbyt struggled in a way in the beginning of the race, maybe a little bit tactically chosen to be a little bit in the background in the beginning, surge his way to the front, and when Van Toerenhout was kind of cooked because of following Van Aert. Iserbyt was able to take over the role and eventually scores a very strong second place.
You raise a good point when you say if he wants to fight with Mathieu van der Poel for a world title. Because the past 2 years, Wout van Aert did not want to do that. Cyclocross this year, perhaps even more than last year, is a low priority for him. It's very clear, Tour of Flanders, Paris-Roubaix, those are his goals. He does this for fun, he does it maybe a bit for the money that he gets from it, but I do think that passion is his main driver here. If he would put in a bit more hours on that cross bike, I think he would be fine. We know that Van der Poel is technically superior over him, and that was also imminent in that season that had those great battles, right? When Van der Poel won the world title in Hoogerheide, every talk of the week was about those barriers at the end and that Van der Poel would just attack over them to the finish line. If he wants to have his level at a significant enough level to compete, he needs to just put in more hours, and we know that he can do it, and we know he has like the base level talent and the experience. That doesn't go away. It's just not his priority now, and he doesn't do that many forest training sessions. I think he's done a handful this year, so we can't really expect more from him. As you said, Gullegem is a course where skills are quite critical. There's a lot of corners, there's a lot of features, and one of these features were these 2 downhill 180 corners, and at one of them you kind of came in hanging next to your bike and then dismounting halfway through the corner. And at one of those instances there, Van Aert nearly completely crashed himself out because he lost his rear wheel there. It slid out. He managed to save it, even making it look like it wasn't intentional, but that most definitely wasn't an intentional slip there. He can do better, but he doesn't want to do better. And in that regard, tomorrow he's going to get a course where he also doesn't need to do better. Dendermonde is very straightforward. It's going to involve a lot of running. You mentioned that looked good today. You mentioned he has the power. All those things were on display today. Tomorrow he can utilize that, and he should perhaps take a win by a minute. You will see other riders bringing up the fight, right? Today we had Iserbyt and Van Toerenhout. Van Toerenhout did what he could. He was the one following Van Aert's initial attack. He said he blew up a little bit, then decided to recover a bit and just nick out that 3rd place. What was your take on Van Toerenhout's race? Do you think that that assessment was right? Did he make a mistake trying to follow Van Aert so long?
I don't think he made a mistake, and the question is, did he like completely blew up? Because in the end, at a certain point, he was behind Viseur, and then he was able to recover and eventually finish ahead of him on the podium. Both Iserbyt and Van Toerenhout have been talking about wanting to have a good result tomorrow as well in Dendermonde, because it's the race which Mette Penninge, their boss, is behind as an organizer and as a as someone that funds the race in a way as well. So I think that they also somewhat have the focus on tomorrow and want to be good in Dendermonde. I don't know to what extent he blew up. Maybe he felt that it was maybe not that worth to follow Van Aert all the way. Maybe he felt that his body was probably not going to hold up doing so, and decided that it was maybe better with also regards to tomorrow to let it go a little bit, because I think that Van Toerenhout tomorrow is also just going to play as much as a factor as he did in the beginning of the race, and they will, both him and Iserbyt will try to get a good result out of that. But yeah, I think overall for Van Toerenhout, if you look at his race, after the supposed blow up, he was able to hang on to the wheel of Viseur quite well, and then eventually it took him over and was able to finish ahead of him. So I think that in the end, for both the Pauwelshausen guys, solid result and both on the podium, so I think they can be quite happy already, and tomorrow they have to finish it off, I guess.
One interesting observation, and I know over the past few weeks we've tried to leave as much for that Belgian Championships preview as possible, but really in the Belgian media, every single result, every single moment of the race is related back to those Belgian Championships, and in that light, something that I noticed today was that where at the beginning of the season we were talking a lot about all these new kids on the block, they were significantly pressuring the, so to speak, old guard of Van Toerenhout, Iserbyt and Sweeck. Those names have kind of resurfaced in this part of the season, pretty much since mid-November, early December. Sweeck has 5 wins this season. He did what he could today, decided it wasn't worth a fight. He only cares about 2 things now, those Belgian Championships and a medal at the World Championships. He wants a second Belgian title and he wants a first medal in Louvain. You won't see him featured tomorrow either, probably. Van Toerenhout, he scrapped a bunch of races to be fresh at this part of the season. Iserbyt has also resurfaced here. And while today Viseur was in the mix, and you can definitely make the case that probably Van der Putten will be in the mix on that course there, those older riders that kind of were under pressure early in the season, they've been able to up their game and position themselves as favorites for that Belgian title and also for the medals at the World Championships. And that doesn't mean that Viseur and Van der Putten or Verstringen don't stand a chance, but it's a different environment we're in terms of expectations compared to the beginning of the season, which was interesting to note. As you said, the Paul Sauze, Sibel Clementine riders were waiting and saving a bit. I don't know how much of that was true, though, for tomorrow's race, because Mette Penning organizes it. I already said it should be a good course for Van Aert. Van Toerenhout should be able to be in the mix there. There were a lot of stories that it wasn't as muddy. It didn't look as muddy, but the last night and then also the upcoming night, there will be a lot of rain on the course. So it's going to turn into a mud fest. The preview videos already indicate that it is already completely saturated with water, the field, and there's going to be quite a bit of running there. So that's something for Van Toerenhout. Iserbyt, I think we can be quite short about it. This is what we've seen the last couple of races from him. He takes it easy in the first half, settles into the groove, and in the final lap he did what he could. He made his move on the technical sections. He messed up a couple of times later, but really he lost the race when Van Aert passed him on the power section. From there was no coming back, and I think there's no shame in admitting defeat to Wout van Aert, no matter how rusty he is. Let's look at the entire top 10. Behind Van Aert, Iserbyt and Van Toerenhout, we find the fourth place for Johan Viseur in a semi-home race for him. Niels van der Putten was fifth, ahead of Ryan Kamp, Felipe Orts, Emile Verstringen, Cameron Mason and Lars van der Haar. Let's zoom in a bit on that battle of the overall Superprestige here. Van der Putten came in with a 5-point lead over Van der Haar. For some point it looked quite dire for Van der Putten. He was like 12th, 13th, Van der Haar was in 4th, 5th. It looked like we would get a battle, but Van der Putten surged forward in the second half and was also aided by the fact that Van der Haar, his shoulder got dislocated again. It's something he's had more issues with, and he was popping it right back in on camera again, and unfortunate for him because he was having quite a solid race until that moment.
Yeah, I think that Van der Haar dislocated his shoulder in his classification in a way, and for Van der Putten it was first lap. I think he made a mistake somewhere and lost some time, but overall it wasn't the greatest of starts, and he lost some ground, has to recover, and he is definitely someone that knows what to do when he has to recover in a way, and he did somewhat well, and he's saving his classification. And I think if you look at where he stands now, he's able to maintain that going into the last race in Middelkerke, and I think that the classification at the moment for Van der Putten almost becomes a certainty. He has to finish decently in a way, but I think with 10 points in the lead, don't think there are many that have been able to throw their classification away. He basically has to start and finish in the points, and if he does that, he can crown himself a Superprestige winner.
Yeah, he's definitely in a good position, an even better position than he already was, right? With 5 points in 2 races, knowing the nature of the Superprestige, it was already going to be hard for him to lose. And I don't really know what happened in that first lap. It looked like a combination of bad start and perhaps a mistake, as you said, but I also think the tiredness is playing a role for him. He kind of needed to push through that because he was at the back end of that group for quite a long time and then only pushed forward. So yeah, if you do as many races as he does, that plays a role. And Issam, if we look at these riders here, right, I already mentioned it. Van Toerenhout, he said before he was ill and therefore skipped Baal and Kokzijde, but today just said it was to create freshness for the championships. And the confusing thing is that with so many races here, more and more riders skip them, and that's a conflict in the Belgian media. There's a conflict about that in the Belgian media because on one hand, when the Christmas period gets so busy and the riders complain, the general consensus is nobody forces you to race all the races. You can just ride whatever you want. You can skip them. But then the last week when riders skip Baal, when they skip Kokzijde or when they don't show up here, then there's quite a bit of complaining as well. Then there is, oh, but these riders don't take it seriously. They're just forfeiting for no reason. Why is it no reason to forfeit if you're Toon Aerts for this race, if you're not in this classification and you have bigger goals later? If there's 11 or 10 or 9 races that you can do in this time frame, why do you want to do all of them when you know it's just going to ruin the rest of your season? It's just conflicting. They want riders to choose the races, but when they do, they don't want them to.
Yeah, it's almost that we are at the point that we want to complain just to complain. I think that this has been a thing that has been going on in the sport of cyclocross for quite some time. I can remember the likes of Albert choosing their races in a way, and sometimes even during a race, not feeling well and knowing that the day after or the next weekend is more important. Klaas van Tornhout is notorious for it in a way. So I think that it's inevitable in the way that with the calendar that we have and the races that are just accumulating, riders are going to make choices. Whether you like it or not, it's going to happen. And I think that for whatever reason, for whatever agenda, there are some people that would like to complain about it. But I think we have said it already before we entered the Christmas period that there are going to be riders that will make choices. There are going to be riders that during a race feel like they do not have the legs and make the decision during the race to kind of switch off and focus on the next one. And that's just the nature of this period, because you have so many races, because, certain riders are doing better in one classification and maybe doing not so well in another, or not even playing part in certain classification. Choices are made, and it's a normal phenomenon in a way. Yeah, in the end, as I say, some people in the Belgian media like to complain a lot, and sometimes with an agenda as well. So I don't think we have to take those complaints highly. And yeah, it has been in the sport for quite a while, I think. So yeah, that's somewhat how I think about it.
Good to leave the negativity behind again, because we should stay positive, start the new year very positive. I want to point out a very positive ride by Kai de Bruikere. He was in the top 10 for quite a while and then eventually just missed out, finishing 11th. But he is definitely having a good couple of races the last few weeks. He was second in Herentals U23 race, and that was really the start for more for him. He didn't really deliver in Huls, but he was third in the World Cup of Zonhoven. Had a few bad races, Gavre and Besançon, but won in Baal and Kokzijde, and now 11th here in the elite race. Those are good results. He's a rider that's definitely on the up, never been a super big talent, a late bloomer, and it's very good to see him now also get a noteworthy result in the elite race, beating a couple of riders like Kevin Kuhn and Toon van de Bos. Then let's move to the women's race. This also followed a quite recognizable pattern. Lucinda Brandt, the Dutch champion, did not have a great start. She was forced to chase in the first lap as we had 3 leaders. Zoe Backset was leading Zeno Carmen Alvarado and Leonie Bentveld. Brandt made connection with these leaders about halfway through the race, just before that, but then as they went into the pit, she messed up. She started to ride a section which she couldn't complete, and then she needed to chase a 10-second gap again. The gap remained about 10 seconds for a while, but in the final lap and a half, she really pushed through. She came back to the leading group, took the lead, and dropped the rest, taking the win. There was a close battle for second place involving some shoulder rubbing and a close sprint, with Backset ultimately getting the upper hand over Alvarado. Issam, in this race, there was the comeback of Brandt, which was quite remarkable because she was chasing for pretty much the entire race. But upon reflection, I don't think the comeback was as crazy as it looked like. It kind of, in perception, seemed like she had such a horrible start that she needed to chase the entire race. But the key moment of the race was when she initially connected with the leaders, that in the pits she had an earlier box, so where most of the riders got their bike put on their shoulder. She was on the grass, remounted her bike, but as she hit the mud, she didn't dismount. She tried riding that section that was already slower. Then she came to a dead standstill before dismounting, and that really cost her 10 seconds, so she needed to restart her chase again, which was at least to me, making it a bit less crazy of a comeback than it initially might have seemed like, considering she only made connection with that group for a very brief moment.
I think why it might have seemed like it was a remarkable comeback is maybe because she was, at a certain point the gap kind of stabilized and she was progress didn't really seem to be made, and I think at a certain point you just kind of think that a rider is just not really going to bridge the gap because you don't want to hang on to a certain gap for that long. But it's Brandt who we are talking about in a way, and we saw it even yesterday in Koksijde that you can see that she grows into a race a little bit, and her last 2 laps are always, if she has good legs, are always there in a way, and she's always able to fire herself up towards those last couple of laps. And I think today was just the same story again. And when she was able to get to the group, I thought that the others were going to be in trouble. The question was really, is Alvarado or Bakstad able to follow, because Bentveld was already struggling at that point? And the answer was they were not. And I think that the last lap was very strong from Brandt, and especially if you look at the amount of races that she has done. To be honest, for the entirety of this season, she has been very busy this season, and to be still able to perform the way she does, I think that is probably more remarkable than her comeback today, which nevertheless was still a very a great effort.
Yeah, it was certainly a great effort, and it fits with a riding style we've seen the last couple of weeks. Not a good start most of the time. Also, that is not by choice. It's just that she can't get it all right. The explosiveness of the line isn't there. Certain other factors play in there as well. And then she needs to chase, and today it came quite well. Well, in the end, it finished quite good for her. And somebody texted me, Brandt with good starts would be unstoppable, and that's kind of the situation where we are in right now, because Alvarado is not as good as she was earlier in the season. She's definitely on the back foot compared to Brandt, and that's not ideal for her. Again, there's time to turn this around, but again, Brandt doesn't have a good start, also makes a big mistake, a mistake of tremendous proportions, I would say, and then needs to chase again, and still she's able to beat Alvarado. That would not have happened to the Alvarado we saw earlier in the season, when she was the one who could permit herself to make those mistakes and still win. So that's a bit of a turn of the table there. Brandt gets it in the end, and she leads the Superprestige. Ultimately, for the overall, it doesn't matter too much where Alvarado finished, second or third, because we're in a very, very tense situation going into the final round, right? So Brandt has a 1 point lead, over Alvarado. Alvarado needs to finish ahead of Brandt in Middelkerke to secure the overall win. They would be equal on points, and since Alvarado has 4 wins, and Brandt has 3 wins, that means that Alvarado would take the victory in the overall based on number of victories. That level of acceptation didn't really seem to have sunken in to Alvarado directly after the race, which of course makes a lot of sense. It's something you need to take a good look at and know the rules. She was definitely disappointed with that 3rd place. Issam, that was a very heated battle with Bakstad. Alvarado had the lead, Bakstad came alongside running, then tried to aggressively move in front. Alvarado got her hands out, gave 2 big pushes to Bakstad. Wasn't really able to see if it was to her bike or her body. Nevertheless, Bakstad came in front. Then it was a sprint between dying swans. They didn't have much left. Bakstad couldn't even come out of the saddle anymore, but just about pipped Alvarado on the line. Alvarado very unhappy with that move by Bakstad in the post-race interview, but I thought it was fine.
I think so too. I think that Alvarado was probably at that point very invested with the fact that she lost out on second, but I don't think that Bakstad really did something wrong there. We have seen that many times. When you're ahead, you kind of dictate the line. I can understand that Alvarado was not all too pleased with that, because she was getting boxed in there, and that basically means that you probably have to mount behind Bakstad then in this case, and that kind of puts you in a disadvantage. So I understand why Alvarado was not having it in a way. The sprint was incredible, remarkable to see that both really gave it their all, and till the finish line. In the end, Bakstad just got it, and I think after that, Alvarado was really not, she was kind of in this losing, momentum in a way of. I don't think she really thought that clear about the classification whatsoever. That will be a thought that maybe sank in right now or tomorrow, or maybe when the last race will arrive, which is going to be in a while. I think Buxted didn't do anything wrong. I think I was actually quite impressed with the ride of Buxted. It's not that I didn't expect it in a way, but I think it was a very good ride. And that last lap, we have seen it in Zonhoven, and we kind of see it again today. On the last lap, she's really good, and she can really put the power down. And technically, it wasn't the greatest. She's still kind of lacking compared to an Alvarado, but I think that today was definitely a very good ride, and it's going to be interesting to see with what legs Buxted will arrive tomorrow, because I think tomorrow is going to be less technical, and we will see some running, and the running today looked very good. Buxted was definitely running quite well, and the power was there as well. So tomorrow could be a very good day for Buxted as well. But she already was able to secure second today, and I think that was a great result.
What I said about Van Aert earlier in the podcast also applies to Backstedt, but to a much lesser extent. The second part of the course was better for Backstedt because she could utilize her power much more, and you could really see her drop the watts there a number of times. She was aggressive in the first half of the race, putting the pressure on Alvarado, also leading through the technical sections, making sure she wasn't put under pressure. Sure, Alvarado took the lead a couple of times, but to me it felt like Backstedt was in the driving seat, especially for those first 25 minutes of the race. After that, Alvarado took over and had a moment that she got away, also in the final lap, but Backstedt managed to turn it around. As you say, tomorrow probably the best course of the season for her, although the World's course should also be very, very good for her. And then just to come back to that sprint at the end, Alvarado said in the post-race interview she pushed Backstedt to try and prevent her rear wheel from hitting her head, which is just straight up bullshit. I mean, I looked at that a couple of times. That was nowhere near. Backstedt could easily have slotted in front. Then maybe it would have been a slight issue, but even then I think it would have been fine. It was just racing in the heat of the moment. She wanted that second place. She didn't want to concede. It felt a bit like the famous internet meme clip between Verstappen and Leclerc when they were young in the karts. What happened, and then Alvarado is you push me, I push back, and Backstedt, when asked about it, is nothing, it's just a racing incident, it happens, and I got the upper hand. So of course there was no reason to complain for Backstedt in the end, just like in that clip there was no reason to complain for Leclerc. One thing I do complain about is the fact that the race was a lap short. Probably the commissars were confused about the race length because there was for once a junior women's race, and that's almost never the case in Belgium. So they clocked the race at 44 minutes, and normally that is as close to 45 as possible, but today they should be as close as 50 to possible, and with lap times of around 8 minutes, a 52 race would have been much better than a 44-minute race. Let's hope that next year, when there will be a fine for races that don't have a junior women's race, they'll actually see these junior women races at every single event. And I will credit the organizers in Gullegem for that, because they put on a bunch of races today. Not only a race for junior women and the mandatory junior men's race, they also had a race in the category Special Olympics, and they really do their best to accommodate for everyone. So that was really nice to see, and also the atmosphere here looked quite good from the TV. There was a marching band playing, there were a lot of people that came out also for the women's race, so overall I think they can be quite satisfied with their event this year. Let's look at the entire top 10 of the women's race then. Behind Brandt, Backstedt and Alvarado we find Bentveld, Ribeirol, Van Alphen, Kant, Kastelein, Frank and Langenbarg. Issam, to start with the number 10, Puk Langenbarg. She's been signed by Phoenix de Koning. What do you think about that signing?
I kind of see the point of signing her in a way. I think that she's a promising talent. She's someone that last year definitely was a little better than she has been this year, although the results definitely have been there where she showed promise of talent, and I can definitely see the point of Phoenix de Koning signing her. I think that it's for Langenbarg, it's going to be it's going to be interesting to see if she can maintain, that progress in a way. And we have seen her struggle in certain races, but that's normal in a way. And I think today was also a solid outing, and it's just now a time of learning and continuing with the progress and see where it ends up. And with Venus de Koning, you're in good hands in a way. There are a lot of women to look up to, and she will learn there quite a lot. So I think that's also going to be interesting to see how that will affect her progress in a way, because I think that having the right team around you will also eventually help you into the right direction, and we'll see where that direction will be.
I do agree that it's a good signing. Ultimately, I think the future of Langenbach might be a bit more on the road. She seems like a powerful sprinter there. She can survive the smaller hills, but nothing too special. So I think Alpecin Phoenix, I must say, in the women's side is a very good home for her. She can combine her passion cyclocross with her probably more like her better future in on the road. She's the European road champion. She won that junior women's title in a sprint. So yeah, I do think that her results this year have maybe been a bit underwhelming compared to last year. She's gotten 13th in Lunard and Baal, and those are two races that didn't have the best start fields, and honestly the same can be said for Gullegem. But also she's a first year U23 rider, and last year she only showcased her abilities at a select number of events. In the beginning of the year it was nothing special, only later she started hitting her form in those junior women's races. In Antwerpen she finished 5th, in Zonhoven non-World Cup she took the win, in Benidorm 5th, in Hogerheide 3rd. The fast courses where she excelled last year, not the technical stuff, not the muddy stuff. And yes, in Tabor she was 4th in the mud, but that was a drag mud. You didn't require much technique there, and that was also my my observation better last year. She was good on the fast courses when it required power, but her technical ability wasn't that special, which is also why I'm inclined to think her career will take more of a pathway like the one of Yara Kastelein, who was in the top 10 today. Doing cross, maybe she won't reach like the heights of Kastelein, who is of course a former European elite champion, but then ultimately just turn the attention to the road and go on to do great things there, and just return to cross because it's your passion in the winter. Any other riders in the top 10, Issam? Maybe Bentveld with the 4th place. She was in the mix for quite a while.
Yeah, I think Bentveld definitely had one of her better races and was able to hang on for quite a while. I think in the end, somewhat fell back to the thing that we have somewhat seen more regularly this season. But I definitely think that for Bentveld today was a very positive outing, and she was able to hang on for quite a while. But I think the moment Brandt was getting closer and closer, you also saw that Bentveld was struggling a little bit with the pace of Bakstedt and Alvarado, and yeah, from there it was for Bentveld a bit more difficult, and you kind of you don't really race for a lot, and behind there Ribeiro was almost a minute behind, so then you're off the podium, you're in 4th. It's somewhat of a position you don't want to be in, and I think then it's obviously a bit harder to fight for every meter, and I think then it's obviously the setback is going to be a little bit bigger than it normally would have been, but nevertheless I think a good race, and definitely one of those races that are more in line with the potential that she has, and let's see if she's able to continue that line into the next couple of weeks, and also towards the Under 23 World Championships, which she's definitely not going to enter there as a favorite, but it's going to be interesting to see how she will be able to bring up the fight to potentially both Bakstedt and Schreiber.
Good, then to end the episode, the return of the results elsewhere in the world. There was a Spanish cyclocross race in Amorillo, where Kevin Suarez Fernandez took the win ahead of Gonzalo Macho. 3rd place went to Hodai Munoz Gabina. The women's race was won by Sofia Rodriguez Rivera ahead of Lucia Gonzalez Blanco and Sara Cueto Vega. And then just to be complete, I forgot it in the Baal episode, on New Year's Day there was also racing in Pétange in Luxembourg, where Lander Looks won ahead of Joshua Dubois and Marcel Meissen, the old man, still racing, still collecting the podiums. In the women's race, Xaide van Sinai won ahead of Larissa Hartog, and the even older Marlène Petit-Girard took third place there. Letitia Borghesi is struggling a bit more on that technical course, finishing fourth compared to that eighth place she had in Tichem it was. Issam, thank you very much. We are, I think, 9 podcasts down, and we have one more to go. Maybe we are 10 podcasts in this Christmas period. I lost count.
Yeah, don't expect me to remember you of the count, because I have no clue whatsoever. I'm happy that we survived it, and it's one more to go, and then we can focus on the nationals, and from there on, it's the road to the world. So thank you for having me, and can't wait for the last one of the Christmas period tomorrow in Dendermonde.
Certainly, hopefully it's going to be a mud fest that we can enjoy watching, enjoying some extreme suffering by the others. Thanks everyone for listening, and catch you guys tomorrow. Goodbye.